Okay, on air.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to greet you a lovely afternoon. Let me acknowledge our attendees. Good afternoon to everybody from Zamboanga City, from PM Library, from E. Rodriguez Junior High School, from QCPL. Good afternoon to everybody. From Malolos, we have attendees from Malolos City, from Lopez Quezon, from Urdaneta City. Good afternoon to all of you. From University of Batangas. From Ilocos Norte. From Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan. Good afternoon to all of you. From Zamboanga del Sur. Palayo ng Palayo. From Surigao Sur, Tandag. Okay, so I hope you are done with your lunch and excited to learn anew from our distinguished guest speaker. As we move forward to our webinar proper, let me remind everyone of some house rules. So microphones and videos are to be turned off by default for attendees during the webinar. So this webinar is recorded for educational purposes. So you can use the chat box to submit content-related questions for our presenters. Please do not use it for other topics or internal discussions. The host will monitor the chat box and only relevant questions will be answered in the question and answer portion. So, to formally start our program, may we request everyone to feel the presence of our Almighty God as we offer Him a prayer, followed by the singing of the national anthem and the URS hymn.
God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will be my guide, hold me closely to His side. With love and strength for each new day, He will make a way. He will make a way. Oh, God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will be my guide, hold me closely to His side. With love and strength for each new day, He will make a way. He will make a way. By a roadway in the wilderness, He'll lead me. Rivers in the desert will I see. Heaven and earth will fade, but His word will still remain. And He will do something new today. Oh, God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will be my guide, hold me closely to His side. pusa, paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matao, ako'y tagulat ay nananilinig. Ang ituwing nataraw na kanya, pamay di magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng walang ating pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Ang hindi kaya nakpag may mag-aapi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Ang mga labi ay umusan ng pagkano. Ang mga puso'y punuin ng kagalakan. Taas noong ibandila ang luhatis natin mahal. Mga pangarap at ipinin mo sa buhay. Sa pamantas ay mabibigyan at umarang ang kulang mong isipan. Inangay ang pinagyaman sa hamon ng panahon. Kailan ka tumitig ng may kamay? Ang mga labi ay umusan ng pagkano. Ang mga puso'y punuin ng kagalakan. Taas noong ibandila ang luhatis natin mahal. Mga pangarap at ipinin mo sa buhay. Sa pamantas ay mabibigyan at umarang ang mula mong isipan. Inanday ang pinagyaman sa hamon ng panahon. Kailan ka tumitig ng may
Okay, welcome everyone. We appreciate you taking time of your busy schedules to join us today. So we hope you will find the program we have lined up for you to be fruitful and engaging. My name is Concepcion Siufamen from University of Rizal System Taytay Campus, and I will be your facilitator on the first part of the program. Professor Aris Anebas will be joining us on the second part. And in behalf of the webinar committees, we would like to welcome all of you to this webinar entitled Faculty and Librarians Collaboration, Why It Matters. So the faculty and librarians' role in maximizing effectiveness and improving learning outcomes. So the world's educational system has been challenged by the pandemic. So the transition that has been abrupt, which leads to uncertainty in the learning activity, learning delivery. So although the outbreak limits physical interaction, the collaboration of different organizations to provide learning opportunities to conduct free webinars like this. So the webinars will provide fresh ideas and best practices that can be applied under the new normal. To begin, we are pleased to have Mrs. Ana Minya Lourdes C. Martinez for the opening remark, the University Librarian of University of Rizal System.
To our distinguished and competent resource speakers, to Professor Johan Guillermo, our Faculty Federation President, to Mr. Carlos Eclevia Jr. and the team of Regalo Touching Lives, our partner host for today's event, to our committee members from the faculty and the library unit, And to all the participants from all over the regions who took time to be with us today, welcome po at maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo. When we are conceptualizing this webinar, it is in all honesty po na at first, I am having second thoughts on whether to pursue. Kasi nga po, medyo mahirap po. From GCQ to MGCQ, back to ECQ. But then, we realized that many are interested to learn. And this is a good way for us to help other people in the academe. Our collaboration with the faculty is one of our best practices. It is essential, especially under the new normal, that there is a difference in the delivery of learning. During this trying time, we should work together towards common objectives to provide quality education and exemplary services. At the end of this webinar, I assure you, fellow participants, that with our experts in the field, our notable speakers, we will be more knowledgeable and we will be more productive. Maraming salamat po muli at magandang araw po sa inyong lahat.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Ana Martinez. Now, to give us their message is our University President, Dr. Nancy Talavera Pascual, followed by Dr. Alan Conde, the Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Sinabi na niya yung rasyonale.
To our resource speakers, who will be properly introduced later, to the Faculty Regent, Honorable John Vincent G. Guillermo, to the University Librarian, Ana Minya Lourdes Martinez, to the faculty and staff of URS, good morning. My deepest respect and gratitude to the people behind this collaboration between our faculty and librarians. Despite the unprecedented difficulties and changes in our lives brought about by the global spread of COVID-19, still, you never stop from pursuing our goal to give our students quality education. I want to recognize the large contingent of faculty and staff who are helping us keep our core educational mission in focus by making the transition to online classes and blended learning. Further, protecting the well-being of our students, faculty, and the community. Our collective efforts have helped us respond to global pandemic challenges as they arise, so we should always be mindful of developments and recommendations constantly emerging. I hope this collaboration will serve as a gateway to many more opportunities for us to demonstrate our leadership, loyalty, integrity, excellence, respect for each other, and most importantly, selfless service to our institution and our clientele. Thank you, and God bless us all.
To our University President, Dr. Nancy T. Pascual, Honorable Faculty Regent, Professor John Vincent Guillermo, to our University Librarian, Mrs. Ana Minya Lourdes C. Martinez, invited resource speakers, friends, dear faculty and students, a pleasant day to everyone. We believe in the academe that no man is an island, and that collaborations and partnership is one of the best avenue in moving forward. Hence, We are now spearheading an activity focusing on the faculty and librarians' collaboration, why it matters. Today, we will be discussing the faculty and librarians' role in maximizing and improving learning outcomes. In these times of pandemic, appropriate learning modalities must be employed for the learning group. A question is, who must take the initiative? What to do? When to start? Where to go about? All are simply questions that can be answered if we collaborate and find the solutions in moving forward. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first faculty and librarians collaboration here in the University of Rizal system via an online platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that inspiring message, Madam President and Vice President Conde. That's the thing about books. They let you travel without moving your feet. By Jampa Lahiri. So, and to proceed with the seminar proper, allow me to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is an education technologies specialist at the Synco Link Technologies and a certified Apple professional learning provider. He is a registered librarian and a licensed teacher who presently works as a school administrator and teacher in transforming learning environments with Apple. He is the co-author of 8 principles in designing authentic online assessment and helping K-12 schools transition to post-COVID-19. So to talk about teachers and librarian toolkit in a remote online learning environment. Friends, let me join me in welcoming our education technology specialist, Mr. REAGAN, Austria.
Thank you, Ma'am Connie, for introducing me, and good afternoon to everyone. I hope you're all safe and healthy, given that we are already a few months after the outbreak of COVID-19. My name is Reagan, and as said, I am an education technology specialist. I am a teacher, a Filipino teacher, an elementary teacher, and a school librarian as well. Today, I'll be sharing with you something that is very simple, which I call Teacher and Librarians Toolkit in a remote and online learning environment. We have to distinguish that because not everyone are able to access things online. So we have educators and students who are doing and who will be doing this remotely and not online. I am connected to an Apple education partner called Syncolink Technologies. And if you are curious about my affiliation, we can be found as iStudio in the shopping malls, and our authorized service center is called iService, that is located in Salcedo Street in Legazpi Village in Makati, and in 4 K-12 schools in Metro Manila. We have Apple stores called iCampus. So this afternoon, every time I present with fellow educators and librarians, ang gusto ko talaga ay yung nakausap sila. So this afternoon, I am inviting every one of you to engage in mini tasks, small tasks, which I will be asking you to do in selected segments of this sharing. If you have a smartphone with you, it might help in performing these tasks later. Sana magamit natin yan. And we will also be maximizing the chat box during the session, the entire session, at the beginning, middle, and end of this sharing. So, fellow librarians and fellow teachers, kindly talk to me via our chat box here. Okay. So, aside from that, to facilitate and guide us in our discussion this afternoon, I will be using some visible thinking routines uh, via our shared wall, which I will be telling you about later. I'll be showing you the link to our shared wall so that you can also respond and interact with me and your fellow participants in this afternoon session. We'll be engaging ourselves in VTR, some VTR skills like Friday feels, pause and step back, 3, 2, 1, and I used to think, now I think. Everything that we'll be discussing this afternoon will revolve around these big ideas. So una, remote learning. Secondly, online learning. And third would be learning environment. So as librarians and teachers, ito yung gusto natin sana na at least basics, fundamentals na pare-pareho tayo, we have a common understanding about. Some of the things that I'll be sharing with you this afternoon will also are also covered in the two papers that I have co-written with Dr. Annie Almario, a curriculum expert. Something that we wrote last March 2020, itong helping K-12 schools transition to post-COVID-19 times. And in June naman, we shared this another paper entitled 8 Principles in Designing Authentic Online Assessment. So medyo may matatouch ako na ilang mga items covered in these two papers. If you are keen, if you are interested to read these papers, hindi naman masyadong mahaba itong mga ito, these are the links. So bit.ly/K-12 transition and bit.ly/authentic online assessment. Walang S pala yan. Okay. So let's begin with Friday feels. Siyempre, since March, April, May, pinag-uusapan natin yung COVID situation, and we know very well that each one of us feels differently about this phenomenon. So gusto ko sana na i-chat ninyo, sabihin ninyo sa chat box ngayon, how do you feel about this week? Ayan. Okay, I can see some people writing in the chat box. This time, fellow librarians and dear teachers, kindly answer this question. How do you feel about this week?
Ang daming sumagot, tired.
Oh, tired. Ayan. Parang hindi ko pa masyadong nakita, Carlos. I can only see greetings from our fellow librarians.
Pa-browse pataas. Pa-browse pataas.
Going up. Okay, going up.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopeful, confused. Thank you, Carlos. Blessed, productive, but tired. Okay. Okay, that is fine. Exhausted. Ayan, marami sana exhausted na. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, fellow librarians. Challenge. I like that. Overwhelmed. I am too overwhelmed up to now. Stress, challenging, thankful. We all have to be thankful about everything, especially our lives. Inspired. Yan, salamat. Thank God it's Friday. Yan yung ating Friday feels this afternoon. So why did I ask you this question to begin our sharing this afternoon? Thank you, teachers and fellow librarians. Kasi it's very important that in everything that we do, in this very special situation, we always begin by establishing context. And by establishing context, that means that we have to be mindful about what we see, what we hear, what we feel, even what we smell, and what we taste sa mga bagay around us. Kasi nga, as I've said, each person, since the beginning and up until now feels differently about COVID-19. Binanggit kanina ni Ma'am Ana Martinez na paiba-iba tayo ng quarantine situation. So every quarantine situation shift, nag-iiba rin tayo ng pag-respond doon sa mga guidelines. And also about establishing context, we have to remind ourselves constantly that nothing is certain yet about today and tomorrow, especially in the context of COVID-19. Hindi ibig sabihin na may na-discover na sa Russia na vaccine o tinatry silang vaccine, o hindi ibig sabihin na nag-GCQ na ngayon ay mukhang nagiging sure na ang mga bagay-bagay. So that's something that we always have to consider, even in our in the work that we do as librarians and teachers. Ayan, thank you. At marami nagsabi na thankful and blessed despite ECQ status, and some are being productive even so, kahit na nasa mga, even if we're working remotely and even if we can only see each other online. Alright, moving forward, let's do another visible thinking routine, which is called pause and step back. And I'd like you to reflect on this question. How have you been preparing for this new and unique school year? Yeah, I know that in almost all universities and schools, lahat tayo, we are all talking about preparing for the new school year. But how exactly are we preparing for the school year? Some teachers, mga co-teachers ko, are already doing their modules. Some have started their school year already. So tayo ba ngayon, ano yung ginagawa natin para maghanda para sa katangi-tangi at medyo bagong taong pampaaralan ngayon. Ayan, gusto ko sana na gamit ang inyong, using your mobile phone, kung meron kayo dyan, gusto ko sana na mag-take kayo ng isang photo of an object or physical space around your house or wherever you are right now that will represent how you have been working on to prepare for this school year. So, medyo ikot po tayo kung meron kayong cellphone sa inyo na may camera, pagkatapos kumuha ng larawan ng isang bagay o anumang physical na espasyo sa lugar ninyo, something na eto mula nung March, tinatrabaho ko na ito. Eto since June, since the pronouncement na August 24 supposedly ang opening of schools, ay ito na yung pinagtatrabahuhan ko. Or since na-extend yung vacation, school open on October 5, I continued working on this item. So ito yung gawin ninyo pagka meron na kayong na take na picture using your smartphone. Okay, I'd like you to go to this website, bit.ly/teacher librarian collab, all small letters. Ayan. Ito yung gagawin natin. Sige, punta po tayo sa website na ito, bit.ly/teacher librarian collab. If you can scan the QR code here, it should direct you to the website, which is on Padlet. Ayan. And on the second column, I'd like you to write your answers here. Ayan, yung pause and step back. Ayan, yung mga sagot po ninyo dito sa those who have already answered using our chat box, pwede po kayong pumunta rito sa link na nasa screen natin ngayon. Again, I'll read it. bit.ly/teacher librarian collab. And that should direct you to a Padlet wall. And kindly write your answers on the second column under pause and step back. We will try to document everything that we'll be conversing about this afternoon, and that will all be collated here in our shared wall. Ayan. Meron na po kayang naka-access ng ating Padlet wall? Ayan. So, while some of you are trying to access the link, I can probably read some responses here in our chat box. So, attending webinars, to gain more strategies, to learn about more strategies and cope with a new situation, work from home online task, how to provide resources, how trying to be technologically inclined, assisting the faculty. This is something relevant to my sharing this afternoon, assisting the faculty for the resources that they need for their modules. Yan, attending webinars pa rin. Yan, let's see if some of you were able to. Yan, thank you. Yan, yung mga nag-take na ng pictures. Thank you. Library in-service training doon sa ating Padlet wall. Thank you. Cute nitong library in-service training ninyo. Okay, merong mga parang nagkakatalog po ba kayo ng bagong libro o nagre-reshelving po kayo? May nag-picture dito. Ayan, meron nag-picture ng kanyang working desk na merong face mask. Yeah, something that we have to practice. Siyempre, proper hygiene during these times. I will let this Padlet wall open this afternoon. Thank you for sharing the link. Ayan, bit.ly Marie Rose Lapad, teacher librarian, collab lang, walang hindi buo yung collaboration. bit.ly /teacher librarian collab. Ayan. Yeah, so while we are chatting here, please continue uploading your pictures of the things that we have been working on to help prepare for this new school year. Ayan, mukhang may mga nasa workplaces nila ngayon while engaging in our webinar. Let's move forward. Okay, so yun yung mga sinabi ninyo na ways in which you are trying to help to prepare help the university and schools to prepare for the new school year. Sometime in March also, our company released a teacher's toolkit na gusto sana namin i-recommend sa mga teachers because during that time, many have been asking us about what should they do, ano bang dapat mangyayari ngayon na we did not know yet in March, di ba? Kung kailan magsisimula ang klase. We didn't know then if the school year will start in June or in July kasi wala talagang nakakaalam. So we published this very, very simple toolkit that we thought will help teachers and educators prepare for the school year no matter kung kailan, di ba? Kasi hindi natin alam kung kailan. So ang sabi namin, it would be very helpful if a teacher has a device. So when you say device, it could be a smartphone, it could be a tablet, it could be a laptop, or it could be a desktop. Anything that you have in your house since during that time, we are not all allowed to go out, diba? And work in our respective offices. Secondly, we recommended teachers to have a messaging tool, an access to a messaging tool, which we thought also that most, if not many of us, are already, if not all of us, are already using naman din, even for personal use. So yung mga messaging tools na to may include Messenger sa Facebook, Viber, o kaya naman SMS, yung text messages natin, and other messaging platform like Telegram, yun, libre din yun, yung ginagamit ko sa trabaho minsan. And third on the list in our teacher's toolkit would be an access to an online class platform. Pero during that time, sometime in March, hindi pa gaanong matunog yung tawag sa tinatawag natin na learning management system. So, during March, hindi rin namin recommend na magkaroon agad ng learning management system. Instead, we wanted our fellow educators to look for an online class platform. Ano yung mga online class platform na ito? Ito yung Google Classroom, which is not an LMS yet, technically, or CISO, yung isang online digital portfolio na nagamit ko na rin as a teacher in my class in the previous school years. And lastly, we wanted the teachers to prepare for learning materials. Yung learning materials that we regularly prepare naman every start of the school year. It doesn't have to be in digital format yet, but we can gradually transform the materials into digital form in the next months naman. Ayan. So, ito yung mga binanggit ko kanina. Kapag naghahanda ka for online remote learning class, device, hopefully connected to the internet, because that is the only way that during that time we can communicate with one another, di ba? Secondly, kasama dun sa messaging tools na binanggit ko kanina would be a working email address. So if you have an email address that will allow you to sign up for different applications, online applications that can augment your online class. Ayan, yung binanggit ko naman sa 5th and 6th bullet, yung teacher's account in a Google Classroom, CISO or Edmodo, yung mga free accounts pa lang yung mga na-recommend namin during March dahil nga we didn't want everyone mag-worry na kailangan pang bumili o mag-subscribe. And gradually din, syempre, naging sikat yung ibang mga online platforms like Google Meet, Zoom, and WebEx, di ba? Kasi nga we wanted to see each other, we wanted to meet synchronously through these tools. And lastly, yung library of articles, stories, photos, images, including memes, memes that you can find in social media, in Facebook, Instagram, and in other links, recorded short lectures and explainer videos. So this is what we call the teacher's toolkit. But how about yung mga librarians naman like us? Ano yung mga kailangan nating ihanda sa ating mga toolkit? So let's take a look at this. Ayan. So if you look at the screen right now, walang pagkakaiba yung teacher's toolkit versus the librarian's toolkit. Pero I'd like to highlight yung last bullet. And that would be yung library of articles, stories, photos, images, including memes nga, web links, recorded short lectures, and explainer videos. Bakit kailangan natin as librarians na mag-collect din ng mga ganito? And paano natin maitutulay itong collection na ito na binibuild natin doon sa teacher's toolkit? Ayan. So, kung meron na tayo since March, nakita ko sa chat box, sabi ninyo, nag-download na kayo ng mga e-books and e-journals while preparing for the new school year. Yan, nag-accession na kayo newly acquired books and additional reference materials para to help the faculty in preparing their modules. Let's try to reflect on this practice muna. Ano ba talaga yung kailangan ng mga teachers versus ano ba yung kailangan natin i-prepare as librarians? Nag-meet ba sa yung dalawang ito? Nag-work ba siya o mag-work ba siya hand in hand when the school year starts? So gusto ko sana na pagnilayan ulit natin yung practice na yun. Oo, meron na kami ginagawa sa library, yung mga teachers may ginagawa na, pero meron bang totoong collab yung ginagawa namin? Kasi when we say collaboration, hindi ibig sabihin nun group work lang. Hindi pangkatang gawain lang ang collaboration. Yung collaboration entails having members, having different roles. So ano yung role ni librarian, ano yung role ni teacher, at paano collectively nag-work yung role ng dalawang yun to achieve a goal. And ang goal na yun is mainly yung library's mandate. So let's take a look at the screen again, fellow librarians and teachers. Ang library's mandate when you are in a university or school setup is mainly to support the school curriculum. Diba? So as librarians, ano ba yung mga ginagawa natin para ma-support talaga yung curriculum? And as librarians, how do we really understand our school's curriculum? Alam ba natin yung nangyayari sa classroom? Alam ba natin yung mga skills and content na inuturo sa classroom? While preparing for this new school year, are we even aware about the minimum expected learning goals, learning skills na sinet ng Department of Education, for example? or doon mismo sa locality natin, sa ating mga universities and colleges and schools, kasali ba tayo sa meeting o sa articulation ng academic committee? How are they going to streamline the curriculum this year? And in connection to that, how can the library support that new or that tweak curriculum? So speaking of curriculum, I'd like you to go back again to the Padlet wall that I shared with you kanina, yung bit.ly/teacher librarian collaboration. And I'd like you to focus on the third column, yung 3, 2, 1. I have posted there a short video about one school. Isa itong sa mga paborito kong videos. Pwede ba ninyong panoorin muna yung video na yan? That's around less than 5 minutes. So while watching the video on the Padlet wall, again, I'll post here on the chat box yung link to that, bit.ly teacher librarian colab. Ayan, that is the link, bit.ly/teacher librarian collab. Please focus on the third column under entitled 3, 2, 1. Please watch the video there. Speaker is not good. Okay, the video is in the Padlet wall in this link here. Fellow librarians and dear teachers, kindly look at the chat box. I have forwarded the link to the Padlet wall, bit.ly/teacher librarian collab, and you will be directed to a Padlet wall containing the video that I'm asking you to watch. Thank you, Rubilin, still watching the video clip. Share screen. Okay. Sir Carlos.
Share screen mo lang yung nasa, nasa middle.
Videos. Here. Baka kasi bumagal tayo, kaya I'm just inviting everyone to watch it and using their internet connection.
Under na videos?
Yeah. Yes. Pero it's in the Padlet wall kasi.
Yeah, sa Padlet, yeah. I can share.
Sige, please. Thank you.
If you want.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Carlos.
Okay, for this one.
Thank you.
3, 2, 1.
Yes,
This one?
please.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Nanyang Girls High School is founded in 1917, and at that point, it's very difficult to start a school for girls. So because of this revolutionary spirit that we have since this school is founded, we would like to make sure that our girls are really relevant in the 21st century. students these days, they are wired differently from our time. So I think that we really have to use a medium and approach that is exciting so that they will look forward to learning and they will not just learn from the teachers, but to be independent learner as well.
Even though we have a long history, a long culture in this school, I think it's part of that culture that we want to be up to date and we want to change with the times. So I think the introduction of the iPad into lessons is really a natural progression.
We had a framework as to what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to see more student-centered activities. We wanted more peer collaboration. We wanted more differentiation. And we also wanted to see more metacognition.
We can't just rely on textbooks. The teachers actually have to create a lot of their own materials. In the past, these would have been printed materials, but nowadays we're using iBooks Author to create textbooks for the students. We're able to integrate video clips into the book, which makes the learning far more interactive. We've also, of course, been able to put in questions so the students can actually do self-assessment as they're learning. The great thing about the iPad is the students can learn at their own pace.
When the iPad is used in class, there was a lot more individual work where the children can go as fast as they need to, or if they need to check up a little bit more, go a little bit slower, that's fine.
The iPad has also changed the way that teachers and students interact. The interaction doesn't only now happen in the classroom.
Put it down, it's now free, it will fly by itself.
I'm using the iPad in my lessons on forces and Newton's laws. They're building and firing water rockets. And they're using the iPad not only to document the process, but they're using apps that can measure the angle of launch, to create velocity time graphs, to map the trajectory of the path, and so on. So what we're actually doing now is we're taking them out. They have a chance to have some fun, but at the same time, do some mini projects looking into kinematics to do with the rocket. But the iPad can do so many things at the same time. Without the iPad, we would have had to get in video cameras, still cameras, and some of the calculations would have required a lot more work. Whereas the apps, you can see everything appear in front of you. Now the learning is more real-world learning.
The students do not just look forward to the teachers sharing what they have, but they themselves contributing actively in the class. I think that level of enthusiasm, passion, and excitement in learning is a lot more than in a conventional classroom.
The students are becoming the center of the classroom. The iPad has empowered them to have more control over their learning. The level of questioning is actually going up. The iPad allows them to easily find out the basics. They now move on and they ask us much more challenging, higher order thinking questions.
We really think that an engaging way of getting our students to learn is just for them to go out there and experience the real world with a device like iPad in hand. They really don't need to sit in a classroom in that factory mode that has been here since the 19th century. That is the kind of exciting, meaningful lessons that I hope for the children.
Thank you, Carlos. All right. So, of course, the video shows us how the iPad helps in enhancing the learning environment in that school, in the physical school. But what I want you to focus on is the types of activities that the teacher has designed for the students and how the students engage in these activities in relation to our conversation this afternoon on how we can help prepare for the new school year. So let us allow this visible thinking routine called 321 help us to answer that question. Using that video, fellow librarians and dear teachers, please think of 3 things that you immediately notice in that video in Nanyang Girls High School. Secondly, I'd like you to think of 2 things that you are really interested in. And lastly, I'd like you to think of, based on that video, one thing that inspires you this school year. Yeah, and you may want to use the chat box to answer this 3, 2, 1, or the Padlet wall that I think many of you have already responded to it. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, students are all girls. Yes, 3 things that you notice. Modern teaching learning. And kailangan natin sabihin, to take note that that video was published sometime around 2015 or older pa. So that means they're not even thinking about the pandemic. They're not even thinking about online remote learning yet. Yet, they're doing things that way, technology enhanced and student-centered. Okay, 2 things you are interested. Okay, iPad excellence and digital learning. Yes, we can talk more about that soon. And one thing that inspires you the most is, you're still typing, is to explore automation sa library natin to support the curriculum. So why did I show you that video? Because gusto ko sanang ipakita sa inyo what curriculum really is. Let's go back to the library's mandate. The library's mandate is to mainly support the school curriculum. And when we talk about school curriculum, what you just watch is what we call curriculum. Curriculum does not refer to the syllabus alone. Curriculum does not refer to the content, yung topics list natin, subject matter budget. Hindi lang iyon yung curriculum na tinatawag natin. Yung curriculum, when we talk about in education, is the totality of all the activities in school. Lahat ng ginagawa ng estudyante, lahat ng ginagawa ng teacher, iyan ang curriculum natin. So how, kung ito ang mandate natin, how can we support that type of curriculum? And since our curriculum this school year is somehow has to be tweaked, diba? Kasi nga yung modality natin would be online and remote. So paano natin gagawin yun? One thing that inspires me is using technology to learn. Yes, definitely malaki yung role ngayon ng technology. Almost requirement na siya. Let's talk about that, more about that later. Okay, so that's our 3, 2, 1 about the curriculum. So let's dig deeper about curriculum, since ang main mandate ng librarians, ng library in a school setup is to support the curriculum. Anong type of curriculum ba yung expect natin this school year? Siyempre, gusto ko sana i-share sa inyo yung mga naisulat namin ni Dr. Annie Almario tungkol sa curriculum. Anong type of curriculum ba yung in-expect natin? Kung may pagbabago, if there are changes, what types of changes do we need to implement this school year? Or if there are things that we have to revisit, things that we have been doing the previous school years already, yet we have to highlight some more this school year, ito yung mga yon. We pointed out 8 principles sana in this paper, pero I'm only sharing with you itong 4. Una, I'd like to invite my fellow educators to forget about previously held assumptions related to pen and paper tests. Diba, alam ko naman sa maraming webinars na banggit na rin, panigurado na hindi natin pwedeng ipilit yung ginagawa natin dati. If we're very much used to giving pen and paper tests as a summative assessment to the students or even informative assessments, baka medyo mahirapan tayo niyan this time. Secondly, let's consider yung intrinsic motivation. And intrinsic motivation, we are referring to intrinsic motivation ng mga estudyante natin. So again, earlier we started with establishing context. So that is what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we smell, what we taste sa mga bagay around us. Ganun din yung gagawin natin this time while we are preparing for the new school year. Consider natin ano ba yung nakikita ng mga estudyante natin, ano ba yung mga naririnig nila, ano ba yung mga nararanasan nila, ano yung kanilang mga kinakain ngayon, ano yung mga pinapakinggan nila, pinapanood nila ngayon during this time of the pandemic. So, pag alam natin yung mga yun, it will be much easier for us to design more appropriate learning environment and more appropriate and more relevant curriculum sa mga estudyante natin. Thirdly would be yung highlight, yung prioritizing yung process over product. As you have seen in the video, makita ninyo doon, parang the whole time during their class, no, yung mga bata nasa labas, yung mga bata, they're working on activities while discovering, while exploring skills and concepts that are to be taught by the teacher. Hindi siya yung tinuring teacher, okay, naintindihan niyo ba? Gets niyo ba? Okay, test na tayo. Hindi siya ganun, no? Especially kapag take into consideration natin yung context natin this time that we are all teaching and learning remotely and online, we have to highlight yung overall process, hindi lang yung dulo o product that we are expecting from the students. Yung entire process from the beginning until the end of the class or a unit of lesson, yun mismo yung type of learning that we are expecting from the students. Ano yung mga takeaway nila doon? Ano yung mga problems encountered nila from that experience? We don't focus only on what have you made after a unit of lesson. What have you produced as an output? So hindi siya, okay, pagawin ko ng project, patingin ng project, checkan ko, okay, natuto kayo o hindi. But instead, we like to look at the process, and in each stage of the process, we like to ask for the students' feedback. Ano yung mga natutunan mo during those segments of the experience. And lastly, we are expected this time to employ a variety of assessments. Kagaya nung nakita natin sa video kanina, no? If you'll go back to number 1, hindi tayo magpapasulat-sulat lang, hindi lang din tayo magpapa-test lang na merong time bound pa, ano? So this time baka pwedeng mas maging flexible tayo. Gumawa tayo ng mga assessments na not necessarily nasa harap sila ng computer the entire time. Kagaya ng pinakita ko, ginawa natin kanina at the beginning, di ba? I ask you to take picture of a physical space or an object inside your homes para to relate it, to connect it. Di ba? That's a skill, making connections to how you are preparing for this new school year. So there are a lot of ways, a variety of ways on how we can evaluate learning, how we can guide our students to learn. So ito yung mga yun. So balikan natin, mag-reflect din tayo, fellow librarians. Yung ginagawa ba natin, yung how have we been preparing ourselves and helping our faculty prepare for the school year? Ito ba talaga is to support the curriculum? So balikan natin yung mga sagot natin from the beginning dito sa chat box natin. Sabi ninyo, you have been attending webinars. You have been revisiting your shelves and reaccessioning, di ba? Lahat pa ng mga yon, nagda-download kayo ng mga e-books, nag-download kayo ng mga PDF files. Lahat ng mga yon ba ay makaka-support sa school curriculum? Yun yung main question. Lagi tayong babalik doon sa library's mandate. So, ito sana yung recommendation natin for this afternoon. When we build our digital collection, when we build our library collection, sana we build a library collection that is directly, again, with emphasis on directly connected and relevant to what is happening in the classroom. So even as librarians, tayo rin dapat alam natin nangyayari sa kanilang mga Zoom class, sa kanilang mga Google Meet class. What types of activities do our teachers employ to process, to facilitate learning? Kailangan alam natin yun para yung gagawin natin, what we can make available for them, is really relevant and connected. Otherwise, even if we have a very rich digital collection in our library, kung hindi naman ito connected doon sa ginagawa nila sa classroom, medyo hindi naitutulay yung ating role sa ating eskwelahan. In talking about this, for sure, at this point, marami na we have already studied and even we have subscribed to different online databases already, di ba? So, kasi naisip natin digital so kailangan meron ako mga e-journals, meron ng mga subscriptions. Pero, ang next step doon ay, how do we connect these online subscriptions to what the teachers and students really need inside their class? And again, we can use that video to reflect about what is really happening inside the classroom. So, ano nga ba yung mga ginagawa ng mga teachers? ito mga papakita ko mga photos sa inyo ay mga photos of professional learning activities that our partner teachers have been doing in the previous school years already. Ibig sabihin, we have not been thinking about online learning yet. That also means we didn't know about the pandemic. Siyempre, nobody knew about the pandemic prior to February or prior to this year. So, ito yung mga ginagawa nila. And again, mag-text to self-connection tayo. As a librarian ba, ganito rin yung ginagawa ko to update myself. Ganito rin ba yung ginagawa ko to make myself relevant to the needs of my students. So, tingnan natin iba pang mga pictures. Ayan. So, ito yung mga during pandemic times na ginagamit din namin itong mga different tools like Padlet, yung ginamit natin ngayon in having meetings, talking about what we could do, what else we could do. Diba? And then, ito yung mga types of activities naman na ginawa ng mga partner schools namin. Gusto namin sana kasi na maging authentic talaga yung assessments na ginagawa ng mga estudyante natin sa mga klase natin. So they're making use of the physical spaces, they're making use of physical objects in their homes to study about, for example, this is a lesson about volume, this is another lesson about volume, to check kung yung cake ba, halimbawa, ay kakasya sa refrigerator nila. Kasi di ba, nung quarantine, sobrang usong-uso yung pagbili na kung ano ng mga bagay and we're storing everything inside our refrigerator. So, bilang pagtapos, bilang paglalagom, ito sana yung gusto kong ibahagi sa lahat. Habang ang mga teachers natin ay nag-design at nag-develop ng authentic online assessment, tayo naman mga librarians ay bumubuo ng isang collection ng mga materials na directly connected to the content. Again, directly connected to the content and skills learned in class. That is why kailangan natin kaibiganin ng gusto yung mga co-teachers natin. And together, teachers and librarians, we consider context in designing and developing a remote and online learning environment. Laging ano bang meron? If you're going to read the first paper that I've shared with you at the beginning, yung K-12 preparing helping K-12 schools prepare for online remote learning, makita ninyo doon na one of the first items doon ay to conduct a survey among your school community. I think many of you, if not all of you, have already done that. So let's make use of the data gathered from that. Ano ba yung meron sila? How can they respond to what I have or what I have been preparing to them, or vice versa? Ako naman, how can I help? How can I use that data to make my preparations more meaningful for them? So to end this, let's do a final visible thinking routine. Let's pause at this moment and step back. Isipin natin, fellow librarians and dear teachers, given this input, given these reflections, kung i-browse niyo yung Padlet wall natin, ano ba yung makakatulong talaga sa atin to help us prepare for this new and unique school year? So, balik tayo roon sa last natin. Marami na palang mga nag-answer dito. Ayan, many of you answered attending webinars. Ayan. So, siguro yung mga natutunan natin sa webinar, pag in-apply natin, pwede we can experiment, no? Para we can tweak it at any point during the process. Which of these will be relevant? Which of these will be practical to my teachers and our students? And managing social media platforms, that's something very essential these days. We have to make our presence felt this time. So yung mga libraries natin, sana may mga ganun din. Ano? Preparing PowerPoint for my online class. Ayan, maganda na meron ka nang na-prepare na marami para to save on time, no? Tsaka you can tweak that at any point in time. Naku, nagkakatalog din pala kayo ngayon. Processing books, thank you. Working from home, preparing modules, worksheets, and exemplars. Ayan. In-service training pa rin. And then, I'm browsing through your responses. in the Padlet wall using pause and step back column. Hope up in using technologies and updating the bibliographies and make it available to our users, and that includes our co-teachers. So I think we'll have our question and answer after the next speaker's session. I'll be seeing you later again. Thank you very much for engaging in our mini tasks, and I hope that you got something from this sharing this afternoon. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, thank you, Sir Reagan.
Thank you very much, Sir Regan, for the very fruitful topic. By the way, I am Professor Aris Anyebas, and I will be your facilitator until the end of the program. And we would like to acknowledge our participants from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And as I saw in our chat box, all participants are all over the country. Most of them are from Luzon, Metro Manila, Visayas, Mindanao, and some from abroad. May I remind the participants to kindly use the chat box for your question. I'm sure many of us learned so much from you. And since I know everyone still craves for new knowledge, allow me to introduce our speaker. Our second speaker is currently a technical services librarian at the Rizal University, Taft. Previously, he was the Learning Resource Center coordinator of Colegio San Agustin in Makati, where he worked for almost 10 years. He is also an accreditor of the Philippine Accrediting Association of Schools, Colleges, and Universities, and one of the officers of the Philippine Association of School Librarians, Incorporated. He finished his Master of Library and Information Science from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, where he also finished his bachelor's degree. Most of his research works focus on information literacy, one of which was published in Journal of the Philippine Librarianship entitled Information Literacy Competencies of English 10 and Kasaysayan 2, Students and Their Perceptions Toward Information Literacy as a General Education Course, which was also awarded Best Thesis during his days as an undergraduate. Another of his collaborative researches was also selected and was presented in Research Applications in Information and Library Studies, Conference 2019 at Canberra, Australia, with the title Information Literacy Programs of School Libraries in the Philippines, Proficiencies of School Librarians Nationwide. To talk about Rendezvous, where can teachers and librarians meet in teaching information literacy, let us all welcome Mr. KELVIN SAMSON.
Thank you, Sir Aris, for that generous introduction. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the University of Rizal System Library Services and the faculty organization of University of Rizal System for inviting me to be one of your resource speakers for today's webinar. Thank you also to Regalo Touching Lives for making it possible by providing the platform. And of course, to all the participants who are in the comforts of their home and choose to listen to us this day. Please bear with me if from time to time you will be hearing some cars passing by. Yung garay kasi medyo maraming naka-park na sasakyan. Hindi, joke lang. I live near the main road, so medyo part na talaga tong background noise ng aking everyday living. So, the title of my topic for today is Rendezvous, where can teachers and librarians meet in teaching information literacy to students. So, susubukan ko po na makapagbahagi ng ilang pamamaraan para maituro ang information literacy sa ating mga estudyante. Anyway, I hope everyone is doing okay despite of this pandemic. I know how difficult it is to survive our everyday living, much more to try to learn new things during these trying times. I also understand that at this point, malamang most of you have attended so many webinars about different topics on how we would be able to deliver services as a librarian and as a teacher, even in this online classroom setup. Mga suki na ng Regalo or other providers ng webinar. I'm pretty sure that what you will hear from me today may not be so new for the others, but still, I do hope that what I will share might be able to inspire you to start your own information literacy program, or at least help you one way or another. So maybe let us start with setting up our learning objectives. I hope that at the end of this session, we would be able to understand the importance of teaching information literacy to students, to present and identify the challenges faced by teachers and school librarians in teaching information literacy program, and to identify where can teachers and librarians do collaboration in teaching information literacy. Now, but maybe before I proceed with my session, I would like to know first if you are familiar with this term or if you are doing some of these activities. Let's have a quick poll. I think our friends from Regalo incorporated na this poll in the chat facility. So I'll just check the polls. Wow, 100% of you know what information literacy is. Very good. And then for the next question for librarians, do you teach information literacy to your students? Let us see. Okay, so majority of you are teaching information literacy to students, almost 85%, and 15% are not yet teaching information. Then for faculty, if we have faculty guests here or participants, do you integrate information literacy in your lessons? Do we have faculty? Wow, 100%, 93, okay. That's good. A big number. Okay, so almost 80% of our participants who are faculty are integrating information literacy in their lessons. I just hope that towards the end of this session, we would be able to increase your knowledge about the topic. So to begin with, let us all be on the same page by defining first what literacy is versus what information literacy is. Literacy, in layman's understanding, is simply the ability to read, write, and do arithmetic. However, information literacy, according to the Association of College and Research Libraries, or ACRL, is the ability to recognize when an information is needed, how to locate and access that information, evaluate information critically, organize and integrate information into existing knowledge, use information ethically and legally, to communicate information, and to assess the information produced and its processes. So in essence, information literacy is learning how to learn. So kung noon po, when we say literacy, importante lang is marunong ka na magbilang, marunong ka magbasa at magsulat. Sa panahon ngayon, hindi na siya enough. It goes beyond comprehending letters and numbers. Now, when we say literacy, our learners understand and relate to their surroundings by infusing their own experience to give meaning to that. So they basically learn how to learn. Now, in the 21st century, especially during this time of pandemic, where we are all confined most of the time in the four corners of our home, information literacy is very much needed since most of our sources of information, such as the schools, libraries, news agencies, and the likes, are closed or our access to it are limited. I think it is imperative now more than ever to teach our students and even ourselves information literacy. And yes, you heard it right. Even us, teachers, librarians, every one of us needs to acquire this ability. But why? Because learning is a lifelong process, and information literacy is a lifelong learning skill. That is why we are pursuing, me personally, for information literacy program to be taught as early as kindergarten up to college and beyond, or have it be integrated into the school curriculum. But probably one of you would say, we already have practical research in high school or any introductory courses to research in college. Is it not enough to teach our students become information literate? Don't you think that it is just the same thing, but you just call it differently? Well, let me answer that with a study I made back when I was in college. Well, it is entitled Information Literacy Competencies of English 10 and Communication 2 Students and Their Perceptions Towards Information Literacy as a GE course. And basically, the study wanted to find out if the research classes that UP Diliman offers, that's English 10 and Communication 2, were enough to make the students information literate. Back then, we had two GE courses. So my respondents were students who were done taking those research classes. And then I made a questionnaire to gauge their information literacy competencies. To sum it up, the study found out that these research classes are not enough to make the students information literate. Those research classes were able to achieve the course objectives in developing skills in writing for general academic purposes and imparting to students the basics of research. However, there were some skills in an information literacy course that were not being taught in those classes. So maybe you're wondering which particular skills they were lacking, right? Not surprisingly, those skills include locating and accessing information effectively, particularly in constructing research strategies, selecting controlled vocabulary in information retrieval, using various classification schemes, and creating a system for organizing the information. The respondents back then were also weak when it comes to designing realistic research plans, seeking expert opinion, making a journal of their activities, and selecting appropriate documentation styles. And then after that, I'm not sure if it was 2016 or 2017, when UP Diliman started offering information literacy as one of their general education subjects, being handled by School of Library and Information Studies. Now, if you will look closely on which particular skills the respondents were weak in, you will notice that this particular set of skills are skills where the librarians or information professionals are strong in, or should I say, the experts on this field are the librarians. This is also the reason why there are some schools, whether primary, secondary, or even in higher education, which offers information literacy as part of their instruction programs. Oh, so is it just a glorified library instruction program? Is it just one of your library orientation thing? The answer is flatly no. The library instruction programs and library orientations are just parts and parcels of the information literacy program. LIP and library orientation focus on teaching students the necessary library skills so they can independently navigate the library and its resources. On the other hand, ILP refers on how to deal with information in general, how to access, locate, use, and evaluate information. So it goes beyond the library. Hindi na siya naka-confine lang sa skills na pang library. because as mentioned kanina, in information literacy, we are trying to impart lifelong learning skills. Okay, so we already know what is information literacy and differentiate it with other instruction programs or even in research. Eh ano ngayon? So what? Sir Kelvin, you said that there are some schools who are teaching information literacy. So what's the need? Well, that is exactly the point. There are only some schools, or should I say, there are only few schools who are teaching information literacy to their students. And most of these big private schools are concentrated here in Metro Manila. In fact, when I had my thesis for my master's degree, that was my topic. I, together with my thesis partners, Ms. Manny Ruth Viray and Ms. Shane Capil, surveyed the school librarians in the Philippines on how strong was their information literacy program or if they have ILP at all. And the result was not really surprising. Basically, we found out that there are a lot of schools in the country which do not have an information literacy program. Or if they have one, there are a lot of attributes of an ILP that were not clear to the school librarians themselves, as well to the other stakeholders of the schools. Now, what could be the implications of us having little or no information literacy programs in our schools? Well, one could say that there would be gaps when it comes to students' learning. Some who are privileged enough to go to these big private schools may have an advantage over students who went to schools without information literacy lessons. So some, when they enter college, are almost ready on how to start their research, while others are still wondering where to start their information seeking strategies. This may also result as to why there are a lot of students, though technically they are digital natives. Ibig sabihin sila yung mga pinanganak at lumaki na merong technology around them, yet there are believers, peddlers, and spreaders of fake news and fake information. This may also be the reason why, though our students are fortunate enough to swim in a vast ocean of information, yet they still choose to copy and paste articles and plagiarize the works of others. This may also implicate limited ability to obtain and understand essential information. They can cope with the needs of time, especially in information, communication, and technology, and even information overload. Okay, so perhaps one of you would say again, but sir, we already have a media and information literacy or MIL subject in senior high. Isn't that enough? Well, the answer again is no, it is not enough. But why? As I've mentioned a while ago, information literacy is a lifelong learning skill. Having to wait until senior high school for the students to be equipped with the lifelong skills that the MIL curriculum provides entailed delayed understanding of things that are in their midst. Imagine as early as grade 7 or grade 10, or even younger pa nga, students are dealing with tons and tons of information around them. And yet, they are not skilled enough to distinguish which are accurate and reliable information versus fake and misleading information. Therefore, I believe that it is deemed necessary to lay the grounds for these lifelong skills to be developed and instilled in the students as early as kindergarten. Now, saan pumapasok ang mga librarians dito? Why are our librarians entering the picture of teaching our students? As discussed, some of these information literacy skills are better being handled by our friendly librarians, the so-called expert in the field of locating, accessing, and evaluating information. Dito na rin po pumapasok yung diniscuss din kanina ni Sir Reagan about collaboration. For teachers, whether you are teaching MIL or practical research, whether be it in general education or higher education, you can always tap and work with your very reliable librarians. For all you know, they are just waiting na mapansin mo sila. Well, some of us may look masungit and mukhang laging naka-glue ang mga mukha sa computer, but believe me, we are more than willing to help. So, if that's the case, bakit di na lang librarians ang magturo nito? Anyway, you are the expert sa field, right? Well, knowing how to do it is one thing, but teaching how to do it is another thing. In the same study we made, we also tried to identify what are the common problems that librarians face in teaching information literacy. And based on the findings, the librarians are having a hard time to look for a standardized information literacy program or modules. They know what to teach, but they don't know which of these skills is appropriate to this particular level or on which particular part of the lesson they will enter. We also found out that there are times that the librarians themselves are not aware of their roles as teachers of information literacy. Or even if they are aware, they lack or they have limited skills when it comes to teaching or pedagogy. Well, though I understand that there are also one-man librarians in many institutions, but I think it still depends on the creativity, resourcefulness, and time management of the librarians. Later, I will be suggesting some ways or tips on how the understaffed library can still participate in teaching information literacy. On the other hand, for the faculty, again, based on the study, sometimes they are not willing to incorporate information literacy into the curriculum or to their lessons, which is also understandable because based on experience and based on what I've witnessed in my 10 years in a school setup, even in your ordinary classes, there are a lot of learning objectives, core values of the school, social issues, and others that you have to incorporate to your lessons. So integrating IL or thinking kung saan part pa of the lesson mailalagay ito would be another burden on your part. But then, we must think that in every challenge, there is an opportunity. It is on this very reason that we are promoting collaboration between faculty and librarians. Yung kulang ng isa, pupunan ng kasama, and yung hindi magawa ng kasama, gagawin ng isa. All for us to be able to achieve our main goal. But maybe the one that topped all of these problems based on the study is the lack of support from the administration. Even if the librarians will take the initiative to teach, even if the faculty agrees to do collaboration in teaching, if your administration will not support it, then you'll be having a hard time implementing it. Why? First, scheduling. How will you teach if the administration will not give you the schedule to teach IL? How will you teach IL if the administration does not realize the importance of teaching it? That is why it is very important that you convince your administration to support you and encourage them to look at it as one community. Now, after determining all these problems and challenges, how can librarians and teachers help one another? Well, since for it to prosper, you need to convince first your administrators. But to do that, you need all the help and support from your faculty, which made me realize how we did it before, back when I was still in CSA. Back when I was still in CSA, my high school library in charge has a good relationship with the faculty, especially the subject coordinators. So what we did was we set a formal meeting and explained it to them na hindi naman tayo magiging burden sa kanila. Well, in fact, mas magiging malaking tulong pa nga tayo since we are offering team teaching and that we will not get their time in teaching. So when we were able to convince our partner faculty, it is much easier to ask permission from our assistant principal that what we were proposing is still in line with the lesson and will not be an extra burden to the faculty as well as to the students. You may also add the importance of teaching IL to our students, what are the implications of having IL students, and how it will help the other stakeholders. Now, once may go signal na from the administration, then that's the time that you will set another formal meeting together with the subject coordinators, well, in our case, the English coordinator, together with her research teachers, and then discuss on which part of their lessons you can do team teaching. You may simultaneously check their research syllabus and their IL lessons or modules and see where you can enter. Now, to give you an example, you may look on this research process diagram. And in this research diagram, you have 6 steps in doing research, namely exploring the background, developing the topic, finding sources, evaluating sources, use and citing sources, and creating new knowledge. Ideally, the librarian can help the faculty teaching all these steps in research processes. Like in exploring the background, the librarian can give an overview of the selected research topic by introducing the subject guides or some reference materials or curated information. In developing the topic, the librarian can help in teaching the students how to develop effective and efficient information seeking strategies. In finding sources, the librarian can introduce the various and wide array of collection that they have in the library. In evaluating sources, the librarian can teach what are the criteria and library tools that students can use in evaluating sources. In using and citing information, the librarian can offer help on how to use reference management software, such as Mendeley and Zotero, and teaching how to cite sources. And then in creating new knowledge, the librarian can offer an avenue where collaboration and sharing of information is promoted, as well as how the students can communicate the results of their research. So on this example, it is more of a team teaching. Since the librarians know the technicals or the know-how, and since they are more familiar with the library resources, how to access and use it, then give it to them. On the other hand, the teacher may then focus on the pedagogy and learning assessments. Now, perhaps again, you will say, that is only feasible, sir, if you have a lot of librarians and library staff. But what about the one-man librarians? What about those understaffed? As I've said, it's a matter of creativity, resourcefulness, and time management. If you don't have enough staff, here's what you can do. Choose which particular part of the research process you can be a big help to the faculty. Sabi ko nga kanina, idea lang yung all throughout the process, andun ka to help. But if your resources and time permits you to be there, then at least join the faculty once or twice. Remember, one of our goals is for the administration to feel that we are in front in teaching IL to our students. If makikita nila yung effort natin and the results, then maybe they will look at it on another perspective. So then, what can you do for the rest of the processes that you can join the faculty? Then maybe you can train the faculty, have a session with them instead on how they can teach those skills effectively, or teach them on how they will look at the lesson again from the point of view of a librarian. I remember when I was still the LRC coordinator in CSA, I was able to observe 2 research classes. One is being handled by a research teacher, while the other was being handled by our librarian. They have the same lesson. What was the lesson nga ba yun? The topic was citing sources using APA style. The research teacher gave the usual lecture on how to cite sources. What will you do if you have one author, if you have multiple authors, or if you got your resources on a website, and all the various rules to follow on citation. And then, when I observed the class being handled by one of our librarians, I noticed that she didn't focus much on the rules on how to cite. She just gave the students the usual format of citation and some examples, but she gave emphasis on the importance of citing sources, what would be the implications of not citing your sources, and how to use citation tools. And based on the feedbacks of the students, they look more interested in knowing and understanding the importance of citing sources than the processes on how it should be done. Because let's face it, the technologies available today could save us a lot of time, and usually it is for free. So there are a lot of citation tools available. All we have to do is to learn how to use it and share it to our community. Other than that, if you are still understaffed and you have tons of tasks to do, then maybe you can prepare the materials that they will be needing for their research classes. You may get a copy of their class syllabi, and then from there, you can anticipate when they would be needing your expertise in terms of locating and accessing information. Now, you may also collaborate with the faculty in a way that you will specifically choose which part of the research process you will just enter. Like you will handle the class all by yourself from pedagogy, technicals, and assessment. Like in LaSalle, we coordinate with our research teachers and get a schedule from their class to attend our IL sessions. In our IL sessions, we specifically targeted the finding resources and using and evaluating information. We include in our session some lessons about different library resources. We introduce our library services and programs that they can take advantage of. We even had lessons about plagiarism, how to put in text citation, how to install and use reference management software. Now, for the rest of the research processes, we let the teacher handle it unless he or she has assistance from us. So those are just some ways on how you can work with your partner faculty or with your partner librarian in delivering information literacy to students. But I think it is also important that before you do all those things, I suggest you do some self-check. You may first assess your situation. For the librarians, ask yourself, am I ready to teach information literacy? Do I know what am I going to teach? Am I familiar with the information literacy or the research process? Am I ready to do collaboration with the faculty? And then after that, know your resources. What can I offer if ever I will be teaching IL? How can I help the faculty in teaching information literacy? Am I open to teach information literacy and take the lead role at some time? Do I have enough staff that can manage the library if I will be out and do the teaching? And then for our partner faculty, you may ask yourselves, am I willing enough to do team teaching with our partner librarians? Will it only entail additional meeting, articulation, or integration to my already full packed schedule? So those are the questions that you have to answer first so you can effectively teach or collaborate with your faculty in teaching information literacy. But sir, during this time of pandemic, can we still teach information literacy? The answer is yes. Now, more than ever, you need to teach information literacy. With the proliferation of fake news about the pandemic and what is happening in our society, we need to help in making our citizen information literate individuals. But the next big question is how? The libraries are closed and not all students have access to the internet. Well, just a couple of weeks ago, I attended a webinar sponsored by the Ateneo Press, and the guest speaker was Mr. Eos Trinidad, a faculty and an author of a book about research. And there was a question raised by one of the participants. How can we do research during this time of pandemic? Mr. Trinidad answered it with, even if we are in the midst of pandemic, even if we do our classes online, the researching basics is still the same. If you do research, you still formulate research questions. You still use qualitative or quantitative method. You still need to practice ethics and etc., which I think is pretty much the same when it comes to teaching information literacy. Not that much has changed. Now, what are you teaching in face-to-face is still the same competencies and skills that you will be teaching even during online class. So if that is true, then what changed? Well, since the physical library is not accessible at the moment, then maybe the librarians can focus in promoting the electronic resources such as ebooks, online journals, and online library databases. But sir, those e-resources are very expensive. Not all schools can avail that. True. But there are also a lot of open access resources that is available online. And when we say open access, these are free, unrestricted online access to research outputs such as journal articles and books, meaning no access fee. So here are some of open access resources that I got from UP and Ateneo. So there is Directory of Open Access Journals. We also have Wiley, Frontiers. We also have ERIC. We have Project Gutenberg, Elsevier, Scientific Research Publishing. We also have CORE, Social Science Research Network, and Google Books, and even Google Scholar. Aside from this, to address the time-consuming task of citing sources and making a reference list or bibliographies, librarians may learn how to install, navigate, and use free reference management software such as Mendeley, Zotero, ReferenceWorks, and EndNote, and then later on teach it to the students. Librarians may also hold free webinars about topics such as plagiarism, intellectual property, patent information and patent search, open access and predatory publications, managing your research data, how to improve your online surveys. And then you may invite guest speakers who are expert on that field, like someone from the community or even from IPO. And then librarians can also do content curation and make some subject guides and then introduce it to the students. In subject guides or content curation, in simple terms, you will collect and make a list of all the available resources that students and faculty can use and access about a certain topic. And usually, you can get those topics from the class syllabi or from the school's curriculum. Now, how about our students who choose modular classes because they have very limited access to the internet? Then at this point, we have to manage our expectations. We can't ask our students and force them to produce a review of related literature with proper in-text citations using APA style if and when we know that they don't have access to the physical library and internet connection is an issue. Since there is a little chance for them to have access to different information sources, then maybe you should go back to the basics. Go back to the main objective. Why are you teaching them to write a review of related literature? Well, maybe because we want them to explore other studies made about their chosen topic. But more importantly, we also want them to learn how to be critical with the information they gathered, and we want them to learn how to cite and give attributions to the works of others. So if that's the case, maybe we could give them 2 to 3 printed articles and then ask them, for example, if these articles are part of your study, how will you put them in your RRL with proper in-text citation? Or how will you compare and report the results of this study to another study about the same topic? So those are just examples, but what I am trying to point out is that let's not just focus on the end product or the final paper. Since you are living in an extraordinary time and we have limited options, then maybe we can manage our expectations a little and focus more on developing skills than asking for a final product. Okay, so lastly, sir, we got your point. We now know the importance of teaching information literacy to students, and we've got some tips and ways on how to do it. But we still don't have a module to follow. We still don't know which particular skill is appropriate to teach on this particular level of students, which is valid. If all of you would create your own information literacy module as you interpret it, then chances are different learning outcomes may occur and the level of information literacy skills may vary from one school to another. One may look for information literacy models available from the internet. However, most, if not all of these IL models are from developed countries. Though all information literacy models have one goal and same processes, sometimes the culture and the state of the country and its citizen do not match the criteria for other developing countries such as our country. Plus, dedicating time and effort to create your own information literacy program is a tedious and time-consuming task. With this, we are offering the product of our research, which is an attempt to create a unified information literacy program for the school libraries based on the existing different instruction programs of school libraries. It is a standalone IL module for kinder to grade 10 with all the lessons and objectives following a spiral approach. We are offering it for free and you may use it as it is. You may edit it, add, take some from it, and make your own, and whatever way it can help you to start your own information literacy program. Now, if you want an information literacy module integrated already in the school's curriculum, you may want to check another study made by one of my friends, Ms. Dia Maria Evangelista Abrigo, entitled Mary School and Integrated Information Literacy Program, Integration of Information Literacy Skills and Library Lessons in a School's Curriculum. It is published in the Journal of Philippine Librarians, Volume 38, and you may access it on the link provided in the PowerPoint. And aside from that, I think this September 19, the UPLSAA will be having, will start their series of seminars or webinars, and one of their first topic is about a workshop on how to teach information literacy. And their guest speaker is Ms. Marian Eclevia, so you may want to check and register on that webinar. So there you have it. Those are some examples of ways on how we can still impart information literacy to our students. I am pretty sure that if the librarians and teachers work together, they would be able to create more and they would be able to expand their reach in making our students information literate individuals. But before I end my presentation, let me ask you again some things about the topic. Let's have another quick poll here. So yes or no lang. First, I know now the importance of information literacy, especially in teaching it to our students. May natutunan ba kayo doon? Yan, 100%. Mukhang lahat naman sila may nakuha. Then for librarians, I know I can do something to teach information literacy to my students. Yes or no? There's another poll. I know I can do something to teach information literacy to my students. 100% ulit. And then for the faculty, if we have, then I think I can work with my partner librarians in teaching information literacy to our students. Ayun, 100% pa rin. So, to end my presentation, allow me to leave you this quote from an American futurologist and author, Alvin Toffler. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. With that, thank you for listening and good afternoon. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, Sir Kelvin, for the very interesting topic discussed. Then, by the way, we would like to acknowledge one participant from the United Arab Emirates. And may I remind the participant to kindly use the chat box for your question. At this point, our speakers are now ready to answer your question. So there is one question coming from Ms. Marcelita Menes, and it is addressed for Sir Kelvin. How can we have an effective collaboration with teachers in the new normal? Sir Kelvin?
Sorry.
How
How?
can we have an effective collaboration with teachers in the new normal?
Yun po. As I've mentioned a while ago, it is important po no na makapag-usap din ang teachers and librarians on how they can teach well, specifically sa akin kasi yung topic ko is about information literacy. Importante na mapag-usapan muna nila kung ano muna yung lesson na gusto nilang i-impart sa mga students nila para at least mas smooth po yung collaboration na gagawin nila.
So
What about sa REAGAN?
Ayan, ako nakikita ko siya na maging effective yung collaboration kapag yung librarians ay sumasali sa mga faculty meetings, especially kapag ang paksa ay tungkol sa curriculum review. Kasi nga, kung babalikan ko yung pagbabahagi ko kanina, malaking tulong talaga kung naiintindihan natin kung ano ba ang curriculum ng eskwelahan. Dahil yun naman ang ating mandate para supportahan siya. And the only way to support it is to understand it, di ba?
One more question for both speakers. How can we justify po that we need to operate even though the times like this? Our administration is just a librarian or don't have any idea how the library works. Come again? How we can justify po that we need to operate even though the times like this? Our administration is just a librarian or don't have any idea how the library works.
Siguro ako po muna. I think it is better na isulat or parang there's a plan on what will you do in the library or how will you offer your services and programs. You write it, make it black and white, and then submit it to them, to the administration. And then, kailangan din kasi makita nila yung effort talaga natin na hindi lang tayo, we don't just want to open the library for the sake na pumapasok tayo. But kailangan makita nila na nag-effort tayo like this one, we are attending webinars to improve and to get some ideas on how we would be able to deliver services and programs even in this kind of setup. Sir Reagan, anything you want to add?
Oh, thank you, Kelvin. Nung nasa Miriam Grade School, Library Media Center ako, ang feeling ko noon, yung library namin dati ay parang heart of the campus. Bakit? Kasi lahat ng teachers, lahat ng estudyante talaga pumupunta roon every time they have vacant time para magbasa, para makipag-usap sa fellow librarians, para makipag-usap sa fellow teachers, para laruin yung mga toy collection na meron kami doon, para mag-record doon sa aming recording studio. Gamit na gamit talaga yung Library and Media Center namin noon. But that was pre-COVID-19. So, nagbabago ba yun? Binanggit ni Kelvin kanina, hindi naman dapat talagang magbago. Kung ano yung meron tayo dati, dapat ngayon pa rin, heart of the campus pa rin, heart of the school pa rin yung library natin. Kasi dito dapat iikot yung curriculum na ng paaralan. Bakit? Kasi kaya tayo nang-build ng collection dahil gusto nating i-enhance, i-enrich yung learning experience ng mga bata at yung teaching experience ng mga kaguro natin.
Okay, one more question coming from Dr. Froderiza Peñaranda from URS. Sir, what collaboration activities can teachers and librarians do to respond to the anxiety and stress parents are experiencing in this learning from home scheme when helping their children with their online activities? Come again.
To reduce anxiety po?
I will read. Sir, what collaboration activities can teachers and librarians do to respond to the anxiety and stress parents are experiencing in this learning from home scheme when helping their children with their online activities?
Okay. So medyo mahirap po no kasi even the librarians are anxious right now, no. So how to help our parents and students? Maybe kasi as much as possible, 'di ba, binabawasan din yung time in front of computers ng mga bata na ano. So maybe we can send instructional videos na lang, parang asynchronous way na parang at their own time, at their own pace, they can study on how they can utilize library resources, how they can use, we can send instructional videos na lang. Huwag na tayong makisabay pa dun sa mga online na or synchronous na klase ng mga estudyante para at least hindi rin sila parang bombarded masyado dun sa mga kailangan din nilang gawin sa classroom o online classroom nila.
Gusto ko, Kelvin, yung binanggit mo kanina about yung pwedeng maging role ng library sa content creation and curation, no? Gusto ko rin yung binanggit mo kanina na baka sa mga libraries natin we can also tap mga community experts, and that itong mga community experts ito may include our parents, di ba? Baka meron silang mga pwedeng ma-create na content na pwede natin i-share doon sa immediate community or sa larger community para ma-help na ma-enhance yung collection natin further. Maganda rin yung shinare sa atin kanina ni Sir Kelvin about creating subject guide for our faculty and students. And siguro ngayon dahil nga sa bahay nag-aaral yung mga bata, malaking tulong din ito para sa mga parents. Kung meron tayong subject guide kung saan nililid natin sa part ng collection natin yung need mismo ng estudyante, it will be easier for the parents to help their kids find relevant resources for learning.
Okay, there is more questions coming. What can you suggest for us to utilize printed materials during these times under new normal? What can you suggest for us to utilize printed materials during these times under new normal?
Actually, mahirap po talaga na ipagamit ang mga printed materials ngayon. Even in my institution ngayon, and even sa previous institution ko, mahirap talaga na ipa-utilize yung mga printed materials. That's why we are focusing now and investing sa mga electronic resources. And we are trying to improve yung, aside from our electronic collection, we are looking for open access resources that students can utilize. Siguro kung medyo gumaan-gaan yung sitwasyon, we can use the document delivery services na from certain dates, merong mga araw na papasok na librarian, and then our students and faculty can ask for a copy of a particular book. I hope na yung mga OPAC natin are accessible online, so they can check the library resources online and then ask for a copy. Then kung yung school natin we have document delivery services, then we can maybe ask a courier, or kung may available na school bus na nagdi-deliver ng mga modules natin sa mga students, baka pwede natin din gamitin yung way para makahiram pa rin ng printed materials. But I don't think, hindi ko pa siya nakikita na possible sa ngayon. Medyo kung gumaan siguro yung sitwasyon.
Idea-wise, no, Sir Kelvin, parang ang ganda na parang perfect time pala to for document delivery service, no? Kaya yung mga mobile libraries natin to cater to the locality, lalo na yung mga estudyante natin na most of the time naman nakatira sa paligid lang ng mga eskwelahan natin. That's something that we can maximize this time. Pero syempre, given nga that we follow yung mga local quarantine guidelines ng mga cities and municipalities natin.
This question is addressed to Sir Kelvin. Hi, Sir Kelvin. I've been working for 20 years as a school librarian and very busy in library instruction program. This year is second year in working as tertiary librarian. What can you suggest IL program for this college level? I find difficult to insert their limited time.
Yes, so pareho kami ng sitwasyon. I've been working sa school library setup for 10 years, and just this school year, I started to work in an academic library. As of now, hindi ko pa na-explore how to incorporate information literacy sa tertiary level. But I will go back to the paper thesis I made back when I was in college, wherein nag-offer, ngayon, the UP Diliman is offering information literacy subject to their students as one of their general education subjects. So, yun yung ideal, na magkaroon talaga ng information literacy subject that can teach our college students to be information literate. But since hindi naman ganun kadali na mag-offer na isang subject, then maybe just like what we are doing in school library setup, we can ask our research faculty, yung mga teachers ng research classes, introduce what is information literacy. Though I know familiar din naman sila with the term, but we take the initiative na kausapin sila on how they can improve and maximize yung library resources and how we can help them in teaching those library resources and even those skills na madidevelop sa information literacy.
So we have two more questions left to Mr. Kelvin again from Maria Bernadette Pangilinan. Sir, who must take the initiative to collaborate with the faculty?
Okay, so though pareho naman na dapat merong initiative from both ends, but I strongly believe na kasi ang faculty, naniniwala ako ang dami na nilang ginagawa. Ang daming hats na sinusuot ng mga teachers natin. So sana this time, and since we are promoting naman the information literacy, sa atin naman galing from the librarians, yung initiative na ma-incorporate yung IL sa lessons nila. Siguro hindi lang enough na yun nga na mag-prepare lang tayo ng materials. We must take an active role in imparting information literacy to our students.
One more question for both our speakers. There are a lot of public schools that libraries have only few when it comes to collection administrators doesn't really support it. Is there any way you can help?
Okay, sir, paulit po.
Okay, again. There are a lot of public schools that libraries have only few when it comes to collection administrators doesn't really support it. Is there any way you can help?
Sige, sir.
The administrators doesn't help the public schools. What may you suggest?
Since I'm one of the officers ng PASLI po, I attended a parang discussion with the DepEd representatives and BFL on how we can establish collection nga po sa mga public schools and public libraries kasi malaking problem nga po yun, and isa sa mga suggestion kasi most of the collection nila ay mga textbooks. So, and isa sa mga suggestion is magkaroon ng licensed librarian dun sa team ng DepEd when it comes to managing the collection of the school libraries sa public sector. Kasi nga, ang nangyayari, parang collection lang siya ng textbooks and yung mga materials that teachers use or instructional materials na ginagamit nila sa pagtuturo. Pero hindi nakafocus yung collection when it comes to talagang yung purpose ng library. So maybe as of now, we are in the process. Nangyari lang kasi yung pandemic, pero we are in the process of talking to DepEd with the BFL on how we can improve the collection in the public sector.
I think Sir Kelvin, if we are to be proactive about that matter, baka pwede natin itap yung mga public libraries natin sa mga communities natin kasi existing din naman itong mga to. Kasi syempre, kung alam natin yung sitwasyon sa DepEd, sino ba talaga yung nagmaman ng school library sa DepEd? Di ba yung mga teachers din minsan or kung sino yung available lang. Ano? So, in short, wala naman talagang licensed librarian na nag-a-administer niyan. So maybe, dahil nandito na tayo sa sitwasyon na ito, we can tap nga yung mga local public libraries natin. Kagaya ng halimbawa yung QCPL, sobrang ganda ng library na yan. I think they are good model for a public library na nag-reach out talaga sa community, lalo na sa mga elementary schools, public schools sa Quezon City. So something that we can maybe, something that can inspire other communities as well. Maganda kasi yun mas direkta sa user at hindi lang estudyante, open dito sa parents para lahat din sila involved doon sa learning ng mga estudyante. Kung babalikan din natin yung discussion kanina, again, yung mga public school libraries natin can also start, they can also initiate nga yung content curation na tinatawag, no? Something na ginagawa ng mga estudyante natin on their own, pero as adults, pwede naman natin gawin yun sa kanila, di ba? As experts na tayo mag-organize information and we make it available to them. Instead of them going directly to YouTube, instead of them going directly to Facebook, why can't we curate meaningful resources from these platforms instead? Libre lang naman itong mga ito. Halos lahat tayo may Facebook accounts, lahat tayo may Instagram accounts. So something na kayang gawin.
Okay, maybe this question will be addressed to Sir REAGAN. Can we scan selected printed materials available in the library and send it to students and faculty use? Can we scan selected printed materials available in the library and send it to students and faculty use? Can we scan selected printed materials?
Thank you, sir. Ang practice usually dyan ay we ask permission first from the author. I remember when I was still collections development librarian sa ERI Library, sa International Research Institute, when we make use of a certain material, even if we already have it in our collection, and we need it to submit or to forward to another user or researcher, we ask the permission first from the author. And they respond to it naman. Usually, they grant permission naman. I think that's a good theoretical practice na kailangan gawin natin para aware siya, di ba?
How can you teach information literacy in public schools since they do not have functional libraries and licensed librarians?
Yes, actually,
Kelvin, Mike.
sorry. That's a good question, and that's a problem na we need to address, na dapat talaga is magkaroon muna ng mga licensed librarians sa mga public schools. So, ang hirap nga naman na i-expect mo na magkaroon ng information literacy sa public schools kung wala ring licensed librarian. I'm not saying na nakadepende lang sa mga licensed librarians ang pagkakadevelop ng information literacy. But since we are, again, the so-called expert dun sa field, so mas maganda sana na ma-address yun. But again, kasi issue rin na kakaunti na nga lang yung licensed librarians and hindi pa na-attract to work in a public school ang karamihan sa mga licensed librarians, maybe because of the compensation, so lahat yon issues. And again, mababalik tayo dun sa DepEd na pakikipag-usap na sana nga is ma-fix din yung mga ganong klase ng problema. So as of now, if there are still librarians or library in charge na naka-assign sa public schools, then doon napapasok yung creativity nila and resourcefulness na even though short sila or hindi ganun kaganda yung collection nila sa library, then they can ask some help from big institutions, private institutions na makapag-donate ng mga printed materials nila. And then for electronic resources, yun nga, may mga open access online databases na pwede nilang magamit to promote. So students in the public school can still access reliable and accurate information.
Siguro, Sir Kelvin, maidagdag ko lang, when we make these resources accessible to the public school students, we also take into consideration ano yung devices na available sa kanila. What type of internet connection do they have? Para pag sinabi natin it's available, we make it available, alam natin na talagang magagamit talaga nila. Again, we go back to establishing context.
Okay, sirs, this question is coming from Angelina Resurrection. Don't you think the librarians need to recommend to the administration to include this in general reduction? Seduction?
Again, sir, sorry.
I think it's education, sir. General education.
Okay, yes. General education. So don't you think the librarians need to recommend to the administration to include this in general education?
Actually, mahirap po na we just recommend it. Kasi sometimes the administration are apprehensive or hesitant sa mga ganon. So hindi po ganun kadali na we just, sa admin na masasabi lang tayo na we want to offer this, we want to be like this. So mas maganda kung supported to ng research or data-driven na mga research para at least sila makita nila na, oo nga, pwede na isama to, may offer to sa curriculum natin. Kasi ang hirap na ilalagay natin yung sitwasyon natin kung hindi pa tayo ready. So it's better na paghandaan din natin, supported by research and studies, why it is needed to be included.
Another question coming from Winifreda Mitante. For DepEd librarians, what can you suggest if our students will be using modular instruction materials provided by our government, since most of our students are in the remote areas?
Yes po. As I mentioned a while ago, kapag modular yung classes, yung as in limited yung access to the internet, maybe we should manage our expectations, no? So we just focus on developing skills rather than final product dun sa mga sa klase natin. So if our learning objective is to develop their critical thinking skills, then kung hindi available na ma-access nila yung physical library or online resources, then let's give them printed copies. Tayo na mag-print ng mga materials and then ask them how they will use that printed copy para lumabas yung critical thinking skills nila. We just have to be creative, resourceful, and yun nga, we manage our expectation kasi ang hirap na pipilitin natin sila na mag-produce na mga yun nga, like what I gave na example kanina, review of related literature, wala naman silang access at all. So leave or for the meantime, iwanan muna natin yung mga end product and let's focus on developing skills. Kasi nga, we are in the very challenging and extraordinary time.
We follow
Sir,
the same. We use the same modality that the teachers use when making modules. Kung ang context ay remote learning lang, hindi online learning. Ibig sabihin, kung printed nga, as sinabi ni Kelvin, printed din yung papadala natin sa kanila kasi there's no other way naman to, di ba, to communicate. There's no other way to provide. Kundi, kaya nga importante na kasali tayo dapat doon sa faculty meeting. Dapat importante na kasali tayo roon sa while the teachers are designing their modules. Dapat nag-i-input din tayo ng thoughts natin, ng expertise natin na baka pwedeng i-integrate mo na to para hindi na ako gumawa ng separate module on IL. Baka naman doon sa content mo pwede nang matouch ito. So across curriculum, dapat present tayo. Hindi lang sa isang separate subject, hindi lang sa English subject, hindi lang sa Filipino subject. Dapat lahat ng subjects kasali tayo. Kaya nga lagi tayo makipag-friends tayo sa mga faculty natin. And we encourage our school administrators to include us kasi we're also faculty, di ba? Faculty rin naman tayo sa mga schools and universities natin.
Okay, for our last question from Angelina Resurrection. Don't you think the library associations, PATLS and PLAI, appeal to the CHED to include information literacies, general education para nationwide?
Maganda po yun. It is better na it will be offered nationwide. Teaching information literacy will be offered nationwide. It's a good idea. And UP Diliman started it na nga. May study naman na supporting na aside from research classes, it is better na magkaroon pa rin ng IL class. But if yung sa question mo is, dapat daw ba ang PATLS or PLAI ang nag-take ng initiative or PARN magsabi na sa SED to require na magturo, maituro ang IL sa college? I'm not from any of those, member ako ng PLAI pero I'm not one of their officers. I can't speak for them. Pero if they can lobby for that, well, better. Pero yun nga kasi babalik tayo dun sa question, how ready are we? Yung mga tayo ba ang magtuturo ng information literacy na yun? Or will it be collaboration with the research teacher? So yung mga ganong bagay, dapat ready rin tayo before we offer that kind of suggestion sa CHED or in any government agency na pwede magpatupad nun. Because yes, maganda yung hangarin natin, pero if we are not yet ready, logistically, yung lessons, and even as librarians, baka mamaya, even as librarians, hindi pa tayo information literate talaga or hindi pa tayo skilled enough to teach information literacy. So, ang dami pang bagay na dapat siguro ma-consider before we ask for that kind of suggestion na i-require ang mga higher education to teach information literacy. But it's a good point. Sana in the near future magkaroon din nun. Kasi malaking bagay na meron nun sa mga schools.
Sir REAGAN, isang mabilis.
Yeah, agree. I can only agree to Kelvin's points. Pero syempre, habang hinihintay natin yung ganyan mga initiatives, siguro, baka we can come up with synergies with different subject areas, no? Kasi hindi naman natin pwedeng ipilit lagi na isama sa curriculum, magbigyan ng separate na asignatura. Kung Filipino nga gustong tanggalin sa kolehiyo, paano pa natin to ilalobby? Pero maraming opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities where we can take advantage of, no? And one of which is to synergize with different departments para lagi tayong kasali. Again, hindi lang sa isang subject area but across the curriculum.
Sir Aris, last na po. For those who are asking for a copy of our ILP module na produce po ng thesis namin, you can email me at kelvin.samson@gmail.com. Then will give it free naman po yun. So yun naman po yung pangako namin when we made that study na it will be given freely and you may use it as it is or you may edit it. Ita-type ko na rin po dito sa chat box yung email address ko. Thank you.
We ask Sir Kelvin and Sir Reagan for the last message. Last message, sir, for the participants.
Sir Kelvin, I'll go ahead muna.
Go ahead.
Okay. One thing lang, and very simple lang, we have to remember that we are still in a pandemic. And while we've been talking about these topics since March, let us all remember also na transition year pa rin ito. So let's not expect ourselves to be perfect. Let's not expect our faculty and students to have perfect practices as well. Lahat ito experimental. We all discover and explore. And in the process, we learn, di ba? Alam natin yan. And then in next year, we have all the chance to improve, di ba? Whatever we have experienced this year. And I think that's nothing new naman to our experience fundamentally. Kasi even in the previous school years, we keep on learning by experiencing it, di ba? Kaya nga nauuso yung learning by doing, experiential learning, kung ano-ano pang mga principles and approaches in education. So let's try to remember that. Let's be considerate. Let's be kind to one another and try to help as much as possible sa mga ibang mga stakeholders ng mga eskwelahan natin.
Thank you, sir.
Kelvin, Mike.
Thank you, Sir Reagan. So, it is a challenging part sa ating mga librarians noon, hindi pa pandemic, to prove our worth, especially in teaching information literacy sa admin, sa co-faculty natin, sa mga students. Challenge na siya even before the pandemic. So, what more ngayon na we are in this kind of situation. So, I hope na these webinars will not be for parang wala lang or meron na attend ng webinar. Sana we think of ways on how we can improve our services, on how we can deliver and help in making our students information literate individuals. Kasi as I mentioned a while ago, importante na hindi lang marunong magbasa, magbilang at magsulat ang tao ngayon, pero importante na matuto tayo or learn how to learn. Yun lang po. Thank you.
And to award the Certificate of Appreciation to our resource speakers and to our webinar host, allow me to read the citation. Republic of the Philippines, University of Rizal System, Province of Rizal, in partnership with Regalo Touching Lives, Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Mr. Kelvin Samson and Mr. REAGAN, Austria, in grateful acknowledgement of his distinguished and invaluable service rendered as resource speakers during the webinar of the University of Rizal System Library Services and the Faculty Organization of University of Rizal System with the theme Faculty and Librarians Collaboration, Why It Matters. Given this 4th day of September 2020, signed Anaminia Lourdes Martinez, RLMLIS, University Librarian, signed Mr. John Vincent G. Guillermo, President, Faculty Organization of the University of Rizal System. The same certificate of appreciation is also awarded to Mr. Carlos Lagrosa Eclevia Jr., Regalo Touching Lives, as a webinar host. Selfie muna tayo.
Aris on cam.
Okay.
Okay. Smile.
Yes.
Hanapin ko pa. Hindi ko makita. Ayan, okay. Smile. One more. Smile. Okay.
Okay, thank you for your valuable smiles.
Thank you po.
Thank you very much to our resource speakers for sharing your expertise and time with all of us, and our webinar host, Regalo Touching Lives, Sir Carlos Eclevia, and your team for working over and above the limits to pursue this advocacy. And to finally conclude our activity, may we invite Professor Johan Vincent G. Guillermo, the President of Faculty Organization of University of Rizal System, to give his closing remarks. To our ever supportive and dynamic President, Dr. Nancy Talavera Pascual, and to our equally proactive Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Alan Evangelista Conde, our distinguished speakers, to the University of Rizal System Library Services, headed by Ma'am Ana C. Martinez, to the faculty organizations of University of Rizal System, officers and board of directors, to the members of the academe, to all the participants, good afternoon. Faculty and librarians collaboration, why it matters? Well, it really matters because library's online presence is part of the school's e-learning environment. It connects the library to our school, community, to the students by providing access to information, resources, and tools to support learning. Nowadays, much of our information seeking and many everyday interaction happens online. In this new learning platform, library needs to include digital content that students can access through online, as research provides compelling evidence that library have a positive impact on students' achievement. This webinar brought realization of the huge changes inflicted by the new norms. In these trying times, we always find ways how to make both ends meet between the faculty, the librarian, and the students. I'd like to commend our resource speakers for the excellent presentation and discussion that leads to the accomplishment of the purpose of this webinar. To Mr. KELVIN B. SAMSON, you have given us a clear understanding on where can teachers and librarians can collaborative work, as we have identified the challenges we have to face and how to overcome it, as we value the importance of teaching information literacy to our students. To Mr. REAGAN, AUSTRIA, with your expertise, you have guided us how to address the needs for remote and online learning environment. And may those guidelines be helpful to us in establishing a collaborative digital collection development program for our schools and libraries. For the more or less 3,000 participants, I hope that the fresh ideas and best practices were retained in your mind so you can apply it under the new normal. I'm sure that this will be definitely not the last, but this will be the first of the many timely and informative webinars that will enrich us and make us competent as an educator. I hope you all had a productive afternoon. Once again, thank you, Regalo, the organizers that made this event possible, and to all the participants. We will heal as one and learn as one. Stay safe and God bless us all. Thank you. Ayan. So, mga kababayan, to get your certificates, kindly fill our evaluation form. The link is flashed on your screen and on the chat box. Congratulations, everyone. Let us all be safe. Have a good day.
So if you are interested naman for our next webinar next week, we have this webinar, Online Library Creating Resources for Access. I will be talking about open access and other resources. So if you're interested and haven't registered, please register na po kayo. For the certificates, again, give us 7 days to process, to verify and process your certificates. I hope all of you po ay nakapag-register na. Then, just in case na you haven't received your certificate after 7 days, please inform us. You can message the Regalo chat box, or you can message me as well if you know my personal FB, my personal Facebook. Okay, so again, thank you very much po sa lahat.